Faith gets tested when nothing in your life adds up. You can talk about believing all day long, but the moment life hits you with uncertainty, that's when your real faith gets exposed. C, everybody believes when things are going smoothly, when the paycheck is on time, the body feels good and the path looks clear, but true faith starts where logic stops. You can't say you trust God and still need to see proof before you move. The whole point of faith is that you don't see it. You just know in your spirit that somehow, some way, it's already handled. The hardest part about walking in faith is that it feels lonely at first. You will look around and realize nobody else understands what you are doing. People will question your decisions. They will tell you to be realistic as if trusting God isn't real. But when you walk by faith, you don't walk by popular opinion. You walk by conviction. You walk with a quiet confidence that says, I don't need everyone to understand. I just need to obey. Sometimes God hides the outcome to test your endurance. He doesn't show you the full picture. Because if you saw everything, you try to control it. He gives you just enough light for the next step. That's how he builds trust. If he showed you the whole path, you wouldn't need him anymore. So when life gets dark, that's your moment to lean in deeper. The darker it gets, the more your faith grows roots. When you start walking by faith, your flesh will fight back. Doubt will creep in. Your mind will say, what if it doesn't work? But faith doesn't need reassurance. It needs consistency. You got to keep walking when your emotions tell you to quit. You got to trust even when your situation screams that it's over. Because when you keep walking, something powerful starts shifting. Not just around you, but within you. You will start noticing small signs of God's hand in your life. A phone call at the right time. A door that opens unexpectedly. A moment that reminds you that you are not forgotten. That's how God works. He doesn't drop miracles all at once. He gives you glimpses to keep your faith alive. Those moments are proof that if you keep walking, the big breakthrough will come. So when the road looks uncertain, that's your cue to move anyway. When the odds are stacked, that's when faith becomes alive. Don't wait to see before you believe. Start believing before you see, because the moment you take that first step into the unknown, heaven starts aligning everything you need to keep walking forward. Most of us spend so much time trying to plan every detail of our lives that we leave no room for God to move. We say we trust him, but we want to control the outcome. That's not faith. That's fear disguised as logic. God doesn't ask for your blueprint. He asks for your obedience when he gives you a direction. He doesn't need you to figure out how. He just needs you to say yes, because obedience is what activates the miracle. It's easy to obey when it feels comfortable. It's easy to trust when the path is clear. But obedience gets real when it costs you something. When you have to walk away from a job, a person, or a situation you thought you needed, that's when faith steps up and pride steps down. God tests your willingness to follow instructions without full understanding. The blessing isn't in the plan, it's in the obedience. When God tells you to move, don't sit there debating whether it makes sense. Most of the time, it won't. You will look at your resources, your experience, and your connections and realize you don't have enough, but that's exactly the point. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. If it made perfect sense, you wouldn't need him. Obedience says, God, I don't understand it, but I trust you enough to move anyway. You will never experience divine provision if you are waiting for perfect timing. There is no perfect time to do what God told you to do. The time is when he speaks. Every delay in obedience is a delay in blessing. Every time you hesitate, you slow down what he's already prepared. You can't ask for open doors and then refuse to walk through them. God won't bless plans built on fear. He blesses steps taken in faith. Sometimes obedience looks crazy to other people. They won't get why you are doing what you are doing. They will question your decisions because they can't hear the voice you heard. But when you are walking with God, you stop needing validation from people. You stop needing approval. Your obedience will often be misunderstood, but it will always be rewarded. The proof of your faith is in your willingness to move when nobody else does. When you obey, you may not see instant results, but something shifts in the spiritual realm. Every act of obedience plants a seed, and just because you don't see growth yet doesn't mean nothing's happening. God's working underground, developing your roots, preparing your harvest. Keep obeying even when it feels pointless, because one day those steps of obedience will connect and you will see however yes you gave brought you right into your blessing. You can talk faith all day long, but until your feet move, it's just talk. Faith is a verb, it's motion. You can pray for change, but if you never take action, you are just wishing. The Bible says faith without works is dead. That means you can believe God for a miracle. But if you are not doing your part, you are blocking your own breakthrough. God will open the door, but you still got to walk through it. Faith isn't sitting around waiting for a sign. It's taking what you already have and using it. If you are praying for a job, you better be applying. If you are asking for healing, start changing the way you live. If you are asking for purpose, start serving where you are. Too many people are waiting for the right conditions before they act. But fail, start with what I've got. Because when God sees you move, he multiplies your effort. Action is proof of belief. You can't say you trust God and then do nothing. Every step you take says, I believe it's possible. You might not have all the tools, all the support, or all the answers, but take that step anyway. When you move, momentum builds. And when momentum builds, blessings start to find you. Faith works best in motion. It's like fire that only burns when fed with action. Sometimes the action God asks of you won't make sense. He might tell you to give when you are broke, to speak when you are nervous, to stay when you want to run. That's where true faith gets revealed. It's easy to act when the outcome is certain, but faith-filled action happens when the outcome is unknown. It's doing your part while trusting God to handle his part. You don't need to know the full picture. Just keep showing up. You will realize that your greatest blessings came not from sitting and waiting, but from moving in faith. Every miracle in Scripture started with a step. The walls of Jericho fell after they marched. The Red Sea parted after they stepped in. The miracle always follows the motion. God responds to effort, not excuses. So don't just pray for it, prepare for it, work for it, move for it. And when you take action, don't expect immediate applause. Faith-filled moves often go unnoticed at first. You might be working in silence, planting seeds no one sees, but God sees it all. He honors action done in faith. Those quiet efforts, those moments of obedience, those little daily steps, that's what builds the foundation for your future breakthrough. Keep moving even when nobody claps for you. Every single time you act in faith, heaven pays attention. You might not see the result right away, but something shifts in your favor. Every act of faith echoes in eternity. So get up, take that step, do the work, and trust that God will meet you halfway. Because faith is not about sitting and waiting for miracles. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts them through action. Most people want God to show the full plan before they make a move, but that's not how faith works. God doesn't hand you the blessing first. He waits to see if you will move without it. The moment you take that first step, that's when provision begins to flow. You can't expect God to pour into your life if you are too afraid to pour out your effort. The miracle never shows up before the motion. It always meets you in the middle. When you start walking with nothing but belief, you find that everything you need starts unfolding right on time, not before and not after. It's like stepping out onto a bridge that doesn't appear until your foot touches the air. That's how God builds trust. He makes you walk by faith, not by sight. The reason some people never see their breakthrough is that they are still standing at the starting line waiting for the whole bridge to show. They are praying, asking, planning, but not stepping. God doesn't move when you plan. He moves when you act. You can't wait for the perfect setup. Faith is the setup. The moment your foot moves, the provision starts connecting behind the scenes in ways you can't see yet. Sometimes God will hold back the blessing until you prove your willingness to move without it. That's how he separates belief from comfort. Anyone can say, I trust you, Lord, when everything's going well, but the real test comes when there's no evidence. He wants to know, can you walk when you are unsure? Can you trust him enough to start even when you don't have enough money, support, or clarity? Because if you can, he'll make sure you have everything you need on the way. Provision isn't waiting for you at the start. It's waiting for you on the journey. Look at every story of faith. The miracle didn't come before the step. The Israelites had to walk into the sea before it parted. The man with the withered hand had to stretch it out before it healed. The blind man had to go wash in the pool before he could see. There's always movement before manifestation. God doesn't respond to doubt. He responds to demonstration. When he sees faith in action, he releases favor in motion. You can't ask God to bless what you are unwilling to begin. But the truth is that first step is often the hardest. It's scary to move when you can't see the outcome. Your mind starts listing all the reasons why it might not work. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if it's not the right time? But faith answers those fears with one truth. What if it does work? The moment you take that step, you break the chain of hesitation. You shift from waiting for things to happen to walking into what God has already prepared. Fear keeps you stuck, but faith keeps you growing. The beauty of faith is that it builds momentum. Once you take one step, God gives you strength for the next. He never expects you to run before you walk, but he expects you to move. Every time you step forward, heaven responds. You might not notice it immediately, but doors start creaking open, opportunities start forming, and resources start appearing. That's not a coincidence. That's divine confirmation. Faith sets things in motion that logic can't explain. What looked impossible yesterday becomes reachable today because you decided to move. And sometimes you won't even realize how close you were until you look back. You will see how every risk, every step, every leap of faith was guided. You will see how provision was hidden in the journey, not the destination. That's why you can't wait to have it all before you begin. You got to begin to have it all. The blessing meets you when your belief becomes visible. Faith starts the walk, but obedience brings the supply. When you move, God moves. And when you keep stepping, he keeps providing. Fear is the enemy of faith. It sneaks in quietly, whispering every reason why you shouldn't move, why it's too risky, why it might not work. Fear paints the worst possible outcome and convinces you it's reality. But faith speaks a different language. Faith says, I don't care what it looks like. I know who's in control. You can't hold both at the same time. Either fear drives the car or faith does. And the problem is when fear is in control, it always leads to regret. When faith drives, it leads to growth. You can't walk in both directions at once. Most people never see their breath because fear talks them out of it before they even start. Fear says, what if you fail? Faith says, what if I fly? Fear says, you are not ready. Faith says, God will make me ready. The truth is, fear will always be there. It just can't be in charge. You will feel it when you are stepping into something new, when you are unsure, when the path looks dark. But faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move despite fear. You have to look fear dead in the eye and walk anyway, because the power that lives inside you is greater than anything that tries to scare you. You got to understand something. Fear is loud, but it's also a liar. It exaggerates, it distorts, it magnifies problems that don't even exist yet. It keeps you rehearsing worst-case scenarios that may never happen. That's how it controls you. But when you live by faith, you stop feeding fear's lies. You start focusing on what's possible instead of what's terrifying. Every time you choose faith, fear loses strength. Every time you speak hope, fear's voice gets weaker. It can't survive in a heart that trusts God's promise more than it trusts life's problems. There are moments when you will have to walk through fear to find freedom. God won't always remove the fear. Sometimes he'll make you walk right through it so you can realize it had no real power over you. Every time you do something scared, you take away fear's authority. The more you walk through it, the smaller it becomes. Courage doesn't come before the step. It comes because you step. That's how faith develops. One scared, shaky step at a time. Fear and faith both ask you to believe in something you can't see, but only one of them leads to peace. Fear makes you imagine a future without God's help. Faith reminds you that God's already in your future. When you choose fear, you focus on what could go wrong. When you choose faith, you focus on what God can make right. You get to decide which one you feed. Whatever you feed grows stronger. If you feed your fear with doubt, it'll paralyze you. But if you feed your faith with prayer, gratitude, and action, it'll lead you into everything meant for you. When fear starts to rise, that's when you speak life. You start declaring, I'm not walking by what I see. I'm walking by what I believe. You remind yourself that fear doesn't come from God. Courage does. Every time you feel fear creeping in, respond with faith-filled words. Speak confidently when you feel uncertainty. Speak victory when you see obstacles. Because your words carry power. You can't talk fear and expect to walk in faith. You have to train your tongue to agree with what you believe, not what you are afraid of. And one of the most powerful ways to silence fear is to take action. Fear hates movement. It feeds on hesitation, but it dies in motion. When you act, even in small ways, fear loses its grip. You start realizing that the thing you were afraid of wasn't as big as it seemed. Faith turns giants into grasshoppers and mountains into steps. You can't think your way out of fear. You have to move your way through it. Every faithful step pushes fear further out of your heart until eventually all that's left is confidence in what God can do through you. The struggle is where your faith gets built. Everybody wants blessings, but nobody wants battles. Yet without battles, your faith stays soft. You can't grow in comfort. You grow in challenge. God uses struggle as a training ground for strength. When life gets heavy, it's not to break you. It's to shape you. You are being stretched, not punished. It's in those late nights when nothing seems to work that faith starts to mature. The very thing you think is trying to destroy, you might actually be the thing that's developing you. You can't ask for strong faith and then complain about the struggle. That's how God measures growth through pressure. When you are under fire, he's testing what you are made of. Anybody can praise God when everything's good, but can you still trust him when everything falls apart? Can you still pray when the pain won't stop? That's where real faith kicks in. Not when it's easy, but when it's dark, lonely, and unclear. Struggle doesn't mean God left you. It means he's working on you. There will be moments when you will wonder, why me? You will question why everything seems harder for you than for others. But that's because God is preparing you for something bigger. The greater the calling, the tougher the training, you are not being overlooked. You are being refined. Diamonds don't form without pressure. Gold doesn't shine without fire. You are being molded into something unshakable. And it's the struggle that gives you that edge. The pain you feel now is proof that something powerful is being built inside you. Struggle exposes what's real. It shows you where your faith actually stands. When everything's smooth, it's easy to say you trust God. But when the storm hits, when the job's gone, when people walk away, that's when faith reveals itself. That's when you find out what's inside you. Struggle will strip away the fake and reveal the foundation. It'll teach you how to depend on God, not people. How to find peace in chaos, how to keep walking when the road feels endless. That's the classroom of faith, and the struggle is the teacher. Sometimes God allows the struggle not to test your strength, but to strengthen your trust. He already knows what you can handle. He's trying to show you when he puts weight on you, it's because he knows you can carry it. It's easy to see the struggle as a setback, but it's really set up for spiritual muscle. The resistance you feel is building endurance. The tears you shed are watering your growth. Every struggle has a lesson, and every lesson prepares you for the next level. You will notice that the closer you get to a breakthrough, the harder the battle becomes. That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. The enemy always attacks hardest right before the blessing arrives. The struggle intensifies because you are getting closer, so don't mistake the storm for punishment. It's actually a sign that the promise is near. God doesn't waste pain. He uses it to position you, to humble you, to prepare your heart for what's coming. And when you are in the middle of it and it feels like too much to handle, that's when you remind yourself you have been here before and you made it through. Every past struggle was training for this one. You are stronger than you think, wiser than you were, and closer than you realize. The struggle is not the end. It's the evidence that faith is still working. And as long as you keep standing, keep believing, and keep trusting through the pain, you are already proving that your faith is alive. We live in a world that moves fast, and we start thinking God moves on our schedule. We want instant results, instant answers, instant blessings. But God doesn't work like Amazon Prime. He's not delivering your breakthrough overnight. His timing is divine, not convenient. You might think he's late, but he's actually lining things up. You are asking for the blessing, but God's preparing the ground for it to grow. You don't see it, but he's moving pieces in the background, setting up the right people, the right opportunities, the right season for it all to come together. When God makes you wait, he's not ignoring you. He's protecting you from what you are not ready for. Sometimes the delay is mercy in disguise. You think you are ready, but God knows what's ahead. He's holding you back because he sees the traps, the distractions, the lessons you haven't learned yet. The waiting season isn't wasted time. It's preparation time. He's building your patience, your character, and your faith. The delay is shaping the person you need to become to handle what you are praying for. We often pray for blessings, but not for the maturity to manage them. That's why God slows the process. He's not just working on what's coming. He's working on you. If he gave it to you too early, it might destroy you. He's teaching you discipline through delay, humility through hardship, and wisdom through waiting. Every day you don't see it happening. He's testing if you will still trust him. Faith doesn't grow in moments of control. It grows in moments of surrender. Think about it. If everything came easy, how would you ever learn to rely on God? When you can't figure out what he's doing, that's when faith has to kick in. That's when you have to say, God, even if I don't understand it, I trust you know better than I do, because he sees what you can't see. You only see the moment, but God sees the whole movie. He knows where you are headed, and he's making sure you arrive prepared. You can't rush divine order. His plan unfolds when it's supposed to, not when you want it to. And while you are waiting, your attitude matters. Complaining doesn't make God move faster. Patience and gratitude open doors that frustration will close. When you start thanking God for what's coming, even before it shows up, you are showing him you are ready. You are showing him that your faith is stronger than your feelings. The waiting room is where faith is proven, not when everything's happening, but when nothing seems to move and you still keep believing. Sometimes the reason it feels delayed is because what's being built for you is bigger than what you asked for. You prayed for a door, God's building a house. You asked for a job, he's preparing a career. You asked for one blessing, he's setting up generational favor. That kind of work takes time. God is not in a hurry. He's intentional. Every delay, every detour, every closed door is part of the design. You might not see it now, but when it finally happens, it'll make perfect sense why you had to wait. So when life feels stuck and your prayers seem unanswered, don't lose heart. The silence doesn't mean God forgot you. It means he's aligning your blessing with his perfect timing. What's meant for you will not miss you. It might not happen when you want it, but it will happen when it's right. The delay isn't denial, it's direction. He's guiding you toward the moment when everything he promised will unfold in a way that will leave you saying, only God could have done that. There's a season in life when God goes quiet, not because he's gone, but because he's teaching you to trust without noise. Silence doesn't mean abandonment. It means growth. When you can't hear him, that's when your faith starts stretching. That's when you learn to walk by faith, not by signs. It's in the quiet moments that God tests the depth of your belief. He wants to see if you still trust him when you can't feel him, if you will still pray when you don't get an answer, if you will still move forward even when there's no confirmation. You see, faith doesn't always live in miracles. Sometimes it lives in the waiting. When God stops speaking, it's not punishment, it's preparation. He's letting you stand on what he already said. You are asking for a new word, but he's saying, you already have one. Now live it. Silence teaches obedience. It forces you to lean on what you know, not what you see. It's God's way of saying, I've spoken. Now show me you believe. That silence builds spiritual confidence because it pushes you to trust what doesn't make sense yet. When everything around you gets quiet, that's when self-doubt gets loud. The mind starts running wild. Maybe God forgot me. Maybe I'm off track. Maybe this is it. But that's when faith steps in and says, no, he's still working. Silence is where you learn to talk back to your fears. It's where you remind yourself of all the times God came through before. That's how faith grows, by remembering the track record of his goodness, even when the present looks empty. Every silent season is a test of memory. Will you recall his past faithfulness or let the noise of fear drown it out? In silence, distractions disappear. You stop hearing the world's opinions and you start hearing your own heart. That's when God starts revealing things inside you that were buried under the noise. The quiet breaks you open. It makes you listen differently. You begin to realize that growth doesn't always come from what's added to your life. Sometimes it comes from what's taken away. The silence strips you of dependence on everything external, leaving you face to face with the truth that your strength has always been within. It's easy to believe when the music's playing, when the doors are opening, when blessings are flowing. But when it's quiet, when no one's clapping, when nothing's moving, that's where faith is refined. That's where you find out if your relationship with God is built on noise or on trust. The silence is not to discourage you, it's to deepen you. It's God's classroom where he teaches patience, endurance, and humility. The quiet is uncomfortable, but it's sacred because that's where your roots go deep. Sometimes silence is everything around you because he's getting ready to speak through you. The quiet season isn't the end, it's the forming ground. You are being molded, shaped, and strengthened in ways you can't yet see. It's like a seed underground. Nobody sees the process, but growth is happening in the dark. Faith grows the same way, unseen, silent, steady. What looks like stillness is actually development. The silence is working in your favor even when it feels like nothing's moving. And one day when things finally shift, you will realize that the silence was never empty. It was full of purpose. Every unanswered prayer, every quiet night, every moment of confusion was building spiritual muscle. God was teaching you how to depend on his presence, not his voice. The silence taught you to stand still and believe that he's still God, even when you can't hear a thing. That's the kind of faith that can't be shaken. Faith that grew in the silence. Faith doesn't wait for a blessing to appear. Faith lies before the evidence shows up. Too many people sit and wait, staring at the empty cup, thinking God hasn't provided yet. But that's not how the spiritual law works. You receive by believing first. You speak it. You act like it. You move in it before you see it. If you wait until everything lines up perfectly, you will wait forever. Belief has to come before reception because God responds to expectation, not hesitation. Believing first is a decision, not a feeling. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to see the full picture. You just have to decide, say it, declare it, act on it, and watch how the universe starts rearranging to match your belief. Every miracle in the Bible started with someone believing in what they could not yet touch. Abraham believed in a promised son before he even had one. David believed he could defeat Goliath before he lifted a sword. Your belief today is the soil where tomorrow's provision will grow. Expectations are powerful because they create momentum. If you truly expect God to show up, your actions will align with that expectation. You will start preparing your heart, your skills, and your environment for the blessing. Faith before sight creates readiness. God doesn't just drop blessings into unprepared hands. He meets preparation with provision. That's why belief has to come first. It's the invisible step that sets the visible result in motion. Skepticism will try to creep in. Your mind will say, how can this happen? I don't see it yet. That's why belief is so critical. You have to choose to trust beyond what your senses report. You are building spiritual vision. You start seeing with your heart, your mind, and your faith rather than your eyes. And every time you act in alignment with that belief, even small actions, you are activating God's response. The universe starts shifting toward the reality you have chosen to accept. Belief before reception also demands persistence. You can't just believe for a day and give up when the results don't show immediately. Real faith keeps speaking, keeps moving, keeps expecting. The longer you stay in a belief, the stronger it becomes. Each day of expectation strengthens your trust and reshapes your mindset. That's why some people seem to wait longer than others. Not because God is slow, but because their belief is still growing. Faith is cumulative and persistence builds a foundation that can hold the weight of the blessing. Sometimes believing first will make others question you. They will see you acting like you already have what hasn't come yet and call it crazy. That's exactly what faith looks like. It's a step beyond logic, a move beyond the crowd, a choice to trust God when no human sees it yet. Your belief has to be firm enough to withstand doubt from others and even doubt from yourself. Every declaration you make, every confident step you take before the evidence is proof that you are willing to receive what God has promised. And as you live in that belief, you start noticing doors opening, resources appearing and opportunities showing up in ways that defy logic. The things you were praying for start lining up, not all at once, but in a way that confirms your trust. You realize the blessing wasn't delayed. It was waiting for your faith to show up first. Belief moves before the manifestation. And when your belief is strong, provision starts flowing to meet it. Life has a way of hitting us with situations that feel too big to handle. You look at your problem, your debt, your health, your family, and it feels impossible. That's exactly when God shows up. He doesn't need circumstances to be easy. He thrives in impossibility. The bigger the obstacle, the louder he wants to show his power. Your human eyes see limits, but his eyes see opportunities. When it feels impossible, that's the signal that God is about to do something extraordinary. Impossible situations are where faith becomes real. It's easy to trust God when things are manageable. When the path is clear, but when everything around you looks like a dead end, that's when belief has to rise. You have to step out knowing that the solution doesn't come from your understanding, but from his power. Every giant you face, every mountain in your way is a chance for God to reveal himself. If it were easy, it wouldn't require him. If it was simple, you wouldn't need faith. Remember, God specializes in turning hopelessness into opportunity. He delights in the impossible because it magnifies his glory. When you can't see a way, that's when his plan begins to unfold. You might feel fear creeping in, doubt whispering lies, but that's why faith must be louder. You have got to hold on to the promise even when the promise seems invisible. God doesn't abandon the battle just because it looks impossible. He equips the fighter, strengthens the believer, and positions the victory. It's in impossible moments that your character is tested. Are you going to crumble, complain, or curse your situation? Or are you going to rise, pray, and move with confidence? The impossible pushes you to the edge of your reliance, forcing you to realize that your strength isn't enough. Only his is. You begin to understand that the miracle was never about your effort. It was about your willingness to trust him in the midst of struggle. When it feels like you are drowning in impossibility, that's when doors start to open in ways you couldn't plan. People, resources, ideas, and opportunities show up out of nowhere because God is working behind the scenes. He is orchestrating solutions that your mind could never engineer. The longer you stay in faith, the more clearly you see his fingerprints. The impossible becomes the stage where God's power is showcased for your benefit and for the world to witness. Impossible situations also teach patience and perseverance. They demand that you keep moving, keep praying, and keep believing even when it feels like nothing is happening. You can't rush the process because the blessing often comes in a way that prepares you for more than you asked. God isn't just solving the problem. He's equipping you for life beyond the problem. Every moment of impossibility strengthens you and positions you for future victories. And when you see the breakthrough, it's undeniable. You will look back and see that the mountain wasn't an obstacle. It was the setup for your miracle. The impossible moment became the proving ground for your faith. The struggle became the pathway for God to reveal his power. You begin to realize that nothing is too hard for him and that every impossible situation is actually the canvas for his glory to shine through your life. Worry is the enemy of progress. Too many people spend their lives stuck in what-ifs, constantly replaying worst-case scenarios in their minds. Worry steals your energy, clouds your vision, and keeps you frozen. But God didn't create you to sit on the sidelines. He created you to move, to walk in faith, to take steps toward the promise. Worrying doesn't solve problems. It only magnifies them. The solution isn't in overthinking. It's in action. You have to stop rehearsing fears and start moving toward what God has called you to. Walking in faith doesn't mean the path is clear. It means you take the first step even when the next step is uncertain. It's not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. Worry wants to keep you paralyzed at the starting line. But faith says, I'll move anyway. Every time you step forward, even in uncertainty, you are telling God that you trust him more than your fear. The movement itself becomes an act of worship and a declaration that you believe provision is coming, even if it hasn't arrived yet. The reason worry is so heavy is because it focuses on what hasn't happened. It keeps your mind chained to what could go wrong instead of what God can do. Faith works the opposite way. It fixes your eyes on possibilities, not problems. When you start walking even small steps, worry loses its grip. Motion is powerful. Action shifts your perspective from doubt to expectation. Every step taken in faith is a rejection of fear, a refusal to be paralyzed by circumstances. You will notice that movement creates clarity. Sometimes you think you are stuck, but as soon as you take the first step, God begins to show the next. The path is revealed one step at a time. Worry wants you to wait for a full map, but faith doesn't need the whole route. It just needs the courage to start. Every move you make in obedience, even when it's uncomfortable or unclear, activates favor and brings unseen doors into view. You can't control the timing, but you can control the steps you take. Worry also drains your creativity. When your mind is busy imagining disaster, it can't see solutions. Walking shifts your focus from problems to possibilities. Action sparks ideas, opens conversations, and creates momentum that thinking alone never will. The more you move, the more opportunities appear. Faith in motion unlocks resources that fear and hesitation keep hidden. You begin to realize that progress doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. Sometimes the first steps are the hardest. You will feel doubt creeping in, your body resisting, your mind screaming that it's too risky. But faith demands that you push through. Movement doesn't wait for comfort. Every step you take, even trembling, is a declaration that you trust God more than the worry trying to hold you back. The moment you start walking, even when everything feels uncertain, you begin to weaken fear and strengthen faith. And as you keep walking, you notice a shift in your spirit. Peace begins to replace anxiety. Confidence begins to replace hesitation. Doors begin to open where walls once stood. Worry loses power because you have chosen motion over stagnation, belief over fear, action over doubt. You start to see that God's provision meets those who walk, not those who watch. Every step becomes proof that He's with you, guiding you and providing for you as you move toward the destiny He prepared. Faith doesn't just change what you believe. It changes how you speak. The words you use reveal what you truly trust. When fear dominates your heart, your mouth follows with doubt, complaints, and negativity. But when faith rules, your speech becomes a tool for breakthrough. Every word you speak starts shaping your reality. Faith teaches you to talk about possibilities instead of problems, to declare victory instead of defeat, to focus on what God can do instead of what you can't control. The human tongue has incredible power. It can destroy dreams or it can build them. When you speak out of fear, you reinforce limitation. When you speak out of faith, you activate miracles. Faith changes your language because it aligns your words with God's promises. Suddenly, you start saying things you don't yet see, and in saying them, you are inviting them into existence. That's why some people stay stuck. They are still speaking defeat when God is ready to bring deliverance. Faith-driven language requires discipline. It's easy to slip into old habits, complaining about lack, doubting outcomes, or rehearsing worst-case scenarios. But when you catch yourself, you correct your speech. You start speaking what aligns with belief instead of what aligns with fear. It's a conscious choice every day to declare God's goodness, to speak victory over your circumstances, to talk about what's coming rather than what's missing. Your tongue becomes a partner with your faith instead of a weapon for doubt. Faith changes your language because it changes your mindset. When you believe, your words follow. You start saying, I hope it works, and start saying, I know it will work. You stop asking, why is this happening, and start declaring God is working all things together for my good. Faith requires your brain to think in terms of possibility, and your words naturally reflect that. Speaking in alignment with faith trains your mind to see beyond the current struggle and focus on the outcome God has promised. Your words don't just affect you, they affect those around you. Faith-filled language inspires others, invites them into hope, and creates a ripple effect of belief. People start seeing the difference in your life before the breakthrough even happens. They notice your confidence, your peace, and your expectation. That's the power of faith-driven speech. It speaks life not just into your circumstances, but into the atmosphere around you. Sometimes it feels unnatural to speak what you haven't seen yet, but that's the essence of faith. Faith is the bridge between what is and what will be. The moment you start declaring what God has promised instead of complaining about what you lack, you start walking that bridge. Your words pave the path for your actions, and your actions align with God's provision. Faith doesn't just change your mindset. It literally changes the atmosphere around you. When you maintain faith-filled language consistently, you notice your life transforming. Challenges become opportunities, setbacks become setups, and waiting periods become preparation times. Your words carry authority, and doors begin to open in response to declarations of trust. Speaking in faith isn't wishful thinking. It's a spiritual strategy that positions your life for breakthrough. Your language shifts from fear and doubt to expectation and victory. And every word you speak begins to move you closer to God's provision. God's provision is real, but it doesn't drop into your lap without action. Too many people pray for blessings and wait for them to appear while they stay on the couch, expecting miracles to arrive without movement. Faith demands steps. God is always ready to provide, but he works with those who move toward him. Every step you take, even when the path is unclear, positions you to receive what he has prepared. The supply meets the motion. That's a spiritual law. Walking first isn't about knowing the full plan. It's about trusting God enough to begin. Abraham didn't know where he was going. He just obeyed the call. Moses didn't understand the seed, but he stretched out his hand. God doesn't need you to have all the answers. He needs your willingness to start. The moment you walk, doors open, resources align, and opportunities show up that were invisible when you were standing still. Provision waits for motion because faith activates it. Fear and doubt will always try to stop you from moving. Your mind will tell you it's too risky. It's not the right time. You might fail. That's why God emphasizes walking first. He wants to see if your trust is stronger than your hesitation. Every step in faith is a declaration that you believe his timing, his power, and his plan are greater than your circumstances. You can't sit and wait for perfect conditions. Faith demands imperfect action. Walking first also prepares you to handle the blessing when it comes. Provision without readiness can be dangerous. God wants to see that you can steward what he gives. Taking steps cultivates discipline, resilience, and understanding. Every action, every move, every attempt builds the skill and the character necessary to manage the abundance he will provide. Faith in motion is like training for a championship. The prize only comes to those who are ready. There will be times when the path looks invisible and all you can see is uncertainty. That's the test. God will not reveal the full plan before the first step because he wants you to learn reliance. When you walk in faith without the full view, you discover strength, courage, and resourcefulness you didn't know you had. God's provision always follows obedience. But obedience begins with a step, not with certainty. The first step doesn't have to be big. It just has to be forward. You might start with a small action, sending that message, making that call, offering your skills, or praying in alignment with action. Small steps build momentum. Each step creates confidence. Each step attracts support. Each step aligns you with divine favor. God rewards movement, not inaction. Every stride in faith signals to heaven that you are ready for what he promised. When you keep walking, you will notice provisions showing up in unexpected ways. The people, resources, and opportunities you need will start to intersect with your journey. God meets you where you are, not where you wish you were. But he always expects action first. You don't receive because you wait. You receive because you move. Every step you take activates God's power and positions you to live in the abundance he has already prepared. Walking boldly doesn't mean you won't face challenges. It means you move forward knowing God is protecting you. Boldness comes from confidence and is covering, not from your own strength. When you understand that the creator of the universe has your back, fear loses its grip. You start taking risks, stepping out of comfort zones, and pursuing your calling with energy that can't be shaken by doubt or opposition. God's coverage allows you to walk with courage, even when the path looks uncertain or the crowd is against you. Boldness starts with belief. You have to fully trust that God is with you in every situation. You don't walk boldly because you know what will happen. You walk boldly because you know who is in control. That assurance changes the way you approach life. Decisions become easier, steps become surer, and your focus sharpens. Boldness is a byproduct of unwavering faith. It's a natural response to knowing that divine protection surrounds you in every move you make. Enemies and obstacles will still appear, but walking boldly doesn't mean they won't exist. It means you have authority over them. God's covering shields you from what would destroy your purpose. Boldness is not reckless. It's confident action under divine protection. When you walk boldly, doors open that fear would have kept closed. Opportunities come that doubt would have blocked, and resources align that hesitation would have missed. Boldness turns what seems impossible into a field of possibilities. Boldness is contagious when others see you stepping forward with faith and confidence. It inspires them to believe. People notice the difference in someone who moves under God's covering versus someone who moves in fear. Your boldness becomes a testimony of God's presence in your life. You influence situations, attract allies, and spark hope in ways you don't even realize. God uses your fearless movement to create impact beyond your personal breakthrough. Walking boldly requires preparation. You are bold not because danger isn't real, but because you have equipped yourself spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Prayer, study, and obedience build armor that reinforces your confidence. Boldness grows when you practice faith consistently, speak words of life, and step into action regularly. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes to confront challenges without hesitation, knowing that your steps are divinely covered. Sometimes boldness will be tested. People will question you. Situations will try to intimidate you, and circumstances may appear threatening. That's when you remember the covering you have. God's protection doesn't remove the test. It ensures victory through it. Boldness means walking through pressure with calm assurance. It's understanding that you are not relying on your own ability, but on God's power, guidance, and shield. Every step you take in bold faith strengthens your position and sets the stage for provision. And when you continue walking boldly, you begin to notice doors opening, alliances forming, and opportunities multiplying in ways that confirm you are being guided and protected. Boldness transforms your life because it aligns action with God's covering. It removes hesitation, silences fear, and attracts favor. When you understand that you are covered, boldness becomes not just an attitude, but a lifestyle of confident movement toward the blessings and destiny God has prepared for you. Music,